Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Seaweed Brain, a Percy Jackson podcast. We are back and we are getting into the real final stretches of the Wrath of the Triple Goddess. We are going to be awaking colonizer ghosts. We are going to be exploring the greater St. Mark's area. A lot's happening, so stick around.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
All right, peek behind the curtain, everyone. This is the first episode we've recorded, like on our end, in like 3 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, since the new year.
New year, fires, lots going on.
Yes. Today will be a little chaotic, I think, because actually chaotic is probably not the right word for it. A little bit strange because it is the middle of the Los Angeles fires and there's so much going on. And there's been very little sleep, I would say, for the past several days.
Yeah.
But we're good. We're here. We're safe. We'll have links in our show notes for some places you can send some money. But here we are coming to you with a podcast with some content because 4 years ago, Carter was like, what if we became content creators? And then that happened. So here we are.
Is that what happened?
I distinctly remember having a conversation with you where I was like, wouldn't it be fun if we did a podcast? And you were like, I would love to switch from being a consumer of content into exploring the sphere of creating content as well. I was like, that's so beautiful.
That doesn't sound like me at all.
I know it doesn't. That's why I remember you saying it.
I do feel like content creator as a phrase was not really, I think it would have been less saddled with cultural baggage, perhaps at the time that would have been said. Pre-pandemic? Is that
Maybe.
A term of art that people use to market themselves to branding agencies and stuff in 2020?
I think so. I think it was. I believe it was.
Okay. I feel like I wouldn't have known about that. I'm trying to figure out a way to defend myself from 5 years ago, and the right answer is that's not necessary.
Own it.
Anyway, we're here today. It's 2025. We're going to be talking about some more chapters with no special guest today for, I guess, fire reasons.
This is another symptom of there's a lot going on in Los Angeles right now where I am, and also Carter has a new schedule for their semester. So
yes,
it's just us
true.
Today. We have guests for our last couple episodes of the book because this is our third to last episode, I believe.
Yes.
This will be our third to last episode before we finish The Wrath of the Triple Goddess. So it's just us today, which is kind of nice because there is some serious Percabeth fan service coming up in these chapters. So we can just kind of sit with that and we can all hold space with that together. We can all hold space with that ... together. That will come up later. We will get back to the ellipses. Well, before we dive in, I want to say on air that we, for 2 years in a row now, have forgotten to revisit our New Year's resolutions and predictions that we did 2 years ago. Shout out to those.
Yeah.
They're
Shout
still
out
in
to
the ether.
those.
I'm sure we failed.
Well, I am active on Letterboxd now. Which is, I think it's vaguely connected to what I said I would do in 2022, maybe at the end of the year or something. I don't know if that's something to be proud of either.
Are you going to tell people?
I have one now. It exists.
Are you going to tell people what it is?
I'm not sure.
Carter, you're teasing them.
Woo! Well, if they find mine, they might find yours, which I guess only has one review on it.
Okay, actually, no. I did also make a burner Letterboxd account in December, which I'm committed to using for the entirety of the year, but I don't want people to know about it because I am still an actor and I don't need people to know my dangerous
authenticity is dangerous and
opinions.
expensive. Yeah.
Exactly. But I'm excited because people were posting their like Wrapped, for
Yeah.
last year. And I really want that. I want to see like who my most watched actor is. I want to see who my
Yeah.
most watched director is. I want to see how many movies I've seen by the end of the year.
Yes.
I'm not worried about like cataloging every movie I've ever seen in my life. I'm just starting like January 1st.
I did that. I went in and I like went decade by decade because I feel like part of the project of it is for me to like have a forcing mechanism to be like, okay, I have 2 hours. What am I going to watch? And for it to not be random thing on the front page of a streaming platform, and for it to instead be, oh, this movie from 1965 that I've always told myself I wanted to watch, And I think part of that involves like going through their like, these are the important movies in the 1960s and being like, I've seen this, I haven't seen that.
Absolutely. I'm trying to cover a lot of early stage Willem Dafoe right now, and it's definitely helping me be more mindful about that. Because I saw the data. I saw that Willem Dafoe was the most watched actor of 2024 on Letterboxd, and I thought to myself,
What?
I want to be a part of that cultural movement. I want to
That's
participate.
so interesting. He was most watched on Letterboxd in 2024. Like, that shouldn't be surprising. He was in a lot of stuff. He was in Nosferatu. He was in Poor Things, which people would have still been watching. Beetlejuice. Yeah, why not? Why not Willem Dafoe?
And Saturday Night. And Kinds
He
of
was in
Kindness.
Saturday Night and Kinds of Kindness. Yeah. I feel like people are constantly rewatching like original Spider-Man.
I'm something of someone constantly rewatching original Spider-Man myself. Anyway, that's Letterboxd, which we are on, and you will not find us there.
If you can guess our handles, we'll not confirm it.
But it's fun. That was our pitch
fun.
for joining Letterboxd for yourself only.
You need more Wrapped. I think that's the real answer. Is we need more things that will tell us what we did.
Yeah, because it's so hard to retain memories these days.
Yeah.
Also, I think Spotify Wrapped was so disappointing that I'm seeking other ways.
Well, okay, Letterboxd Wrap wasn't exactly high production value fantasy either, but that's okay. It was something else. It was something additional.
Yeah, my pitch is Letterboxd and Storygraph. That's what I use. Although I know a lot of people use Fable, and I might get into that this year as well. Book tracking app. Where did we last leave off, Carter? It's been 3 weeks since we recorded, I think.
Genuinely, do I know the answer to that question? Basically, we were just preparing for what we're going to do in these chapters, right? We were like laying down a final battle plan for rallying these ghosts, renovating the mansion, getting some additional backstory. I think it was the last episode where we also talked about the school of witchcraft that Hecate ran in the 1900s and its potential connection to both Eudora, the guidance counselor Nereid, and Sally, who obviously did not go because she was not born before the 1910s, but like had a formative childhood experience with Hecate. Chapter 31 is we find some different dead guys, and we're on our way to the cemetery to wake the dead, to have them rebuild the mansion, which is our final step to not getting killed by Hecate.
Yeehaw. Have you ever been to St. Mark's Church, Carter?
I must have walked by it. I feel like I have done my time in the greater St. Mark's area. There's always something you'll need there. Soba, a piercing.
I've definitely walked by it. I've never been inside of it.
Oh yeah, I obviously have not been inside of St. Mark's Church, but I think I have walked by the facade and probably the grave site in question.
There is a reference at the start of this chapter to there being Greek key designs on the gates, and I was very curious if that's actually true, and that's something that was observed and put into this book, but I don't think it is true. I'm kind of staring at the little black gate that surrounds the church, which is not a huge gate, and I don't think that there's anything there, but if anybody wants to go and do more specific research, I'm like Apple Plusing, zooming in like crazy to this. I don't think so, but somebody should go and tell us who lives in the city right now, because that'd be pretty sick if there were.
That would be.
I like how Percy's like, oh, Greek key designs, that means something mythological and nefarious is up here.
That would both be kind of commonplace, I think, for vaguely neoclassical architecture, but also like I don't think the Dutch of the early 1600s were particularly up in the neoclassical architecture. They had a lot of their own stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the general facade of St. Mark's, it does not look like you would see it in ancient Greece. It looks very of the time and culture that it actually originated in.
1700s.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of me asking questions about Peter Stuyvesant in this episode. And one of the questions I have that I did not research and answer for yet is the Peter Stuyvesant in question, because I think we talked about this several episodes ago. There were several Peter Stuyvesants, part of this one family that lived in New York. throughout a long period of time, all direct descendants and whatnot. The Peter Stuyvesant in question here, the one that is buried at St. Mark's, died before St. Mark's was built, the church. So I'm wondering how his body got there and how that became his final resting place.
I have the Wikipedia in front of me. There was a different church that existed there before St. Mark's. So he was buried before they did the rebuilding reno, is what I'm getting out of this.
Oh.
So yes, his body being entombed there predates St. Mark's Church, which is kind of wild.
Ooh, that's kind of nasty. Yeah, interesting. Okay, thank you for the answer to my question, Carter. You're a much better Wikipedia reader than I am.
We're in the cemetery. We're making things happen. I was really interested in the way that they describe the, I guess, specific magic task that they have to do, which is all about attention and focus, which is hard for Percy. And in general, we don't, I guess, know that much how hard this is for Annabeth, but we know she also has ADHD and that a focus-based exercise is probably uniquely difficult for them. I really liked the writing of Percy's internal monologue describing all of the, I guess, the distractions that he was dealing with.
On page 260, Annabeth, ready, she said. Just help me by concentrating on what we need. Right, I thought. I want the spirits to rebuild a haunted house. If this went well, we could start our own show on the home DIY channel, Renovated to Death. Already I wasn't doing well staying focused. I was about to suggest we take a minute, maybe practice some meditative breathing, but it was too late. Annabeth stretched out her arms and the torches blazed to life on their own. Blue and white flames cast a sickly glow across the old stone wall, glinting on the stained glass. The depictions of saints leaped and danced in a way that wasn't at all creepy. Concentrate, I told myself. I closed my eyes. That didn't help. My mind just raced with more wild ideas. I focused on the stone marker. I imagined Hecate's mansion being rebuilt, with pizza toppings. Stop it, brain! I hoped the rest of the gang was having better luck. The ground trembled. Annabeth almost lost her balance, but she regained her bearings quickly. Gale jumped off my shoulder and hid behind me. The polecat was no fool. If the ghosts turned angry, much better to let them devour the big, juicy demigods. Okay, and then the fire warms the air, and then Pete is about to appear. And Grover says, it's him. They called him Peg-Leg Pete, because he shows up with a peg leg. And Percy says, isn't that a cartoon character? And Grover says, different Peg-Leg Pete. How do you know that? I did the assigned reading.
Everybody clap for Grover for doing the assigned reading. That's important.
But also perhaps Percy's like, maybe Annabeth didn't even give me the assigned reading because she knew I wasn't going to do it.
Whoa. That's profound. That's the curse of low expectations.
Yeah,
but also he wasn't going to do the assigned reading.
He wasn't. Top of 263. Either I'd forgotten about it or Annabeth hadn't bothered giving it to me because she knew it was hopeless. Boys! Annabeth gritted her teeth. Help! Right, focus. I felt bad for Annabeth in that moment.
It's tough for her. Pete is here, or Peter. There's, I guess, running discourse about what nicknames we're allowed to use for him. But as he appears through these shadows in the cemetery of St. Mark's, we get these visions of early New Amsterdam. And I wasn't expecting us to get into this, to be honest. I'm going to read a short quote. Percy says, after seeing these visions about how, I guess, difficult it was for them to live in New Amsterdam and the different enemies that they were dealing with, Percy says, quote, I couldn't blame them. Resting in peace wasn't something that happened a lot in Manhattan. Percy basically is feeling bad for them because their experience as spirits is of the city kind of like arising around them, leaving them behind. We've said this before. I found this interesting because, well, these are colonizers. I don't know how much interesting new stuff there is to say about this point. I do not feel bad for them in the same way. And I think this was an interesting choice.
I think Percy is very empathetic when he says, I couldn't blame them.
But you could. Their actions had direct consequences that were perhaps not even commensurate to necessarily what they did to, the people who were there.
This is non-radicalized Percy in this moment,
Yeah.
This is teenage white boy Percy, dare I say.
Some of these ideas about, like, the city leaving them behind, like, let's think more deeply about, like, these people have preserved gravestones in New York. Very, very few people could say the same thing, including people who are currently living there. Anyway, I'm going to read another quote. The whole graveyard seemed to have risen. Hundreds of souls from unmarked graves, their names forgotten, their identities erased over the centuries. They thought in Dutch, English, French, and Algonquin, a chaotic chorus I couldn't follow, but the emotions were clear enough. Let's puzzle over this for a second. Is the implication here that everyone who has died vaguely near St. Mark's Church is being brought back to life and is being ordered around by Peter Stuyvesant.
Yes. Everyone who was buried on the land that like Percy and Annabeth and Grover are standing on right now is being summoned to life from every time period and every different version of, I guess, what New York has been.
That's tough for a number of reasons. These spirits, like most of them, would not have any personal relationship with Peter Stuyvesant. They would have either postdated him or predated him, especially now that we're specifically calling out different ethnic groups that would not have coexisted with Peter Stuyvesant and New Amsterdam. This is an interesting choice. I think the intention was supposed to be to remind the reader and to recognize that the island of Manhattan has a rich and storied history that involves many different nations and cultures. However, I don't love it. For me personally, the idea of these different people being ordered around, made to do labor by Peter Stuyvesant.
Or even that they were, look, it says at the end of that paragraph, they were just waiting for a sign from Pegleg Pete.
Yeah. I don't know if I see that vision of these people having deference to this person who I guess maybe there's some sort of underworld lore about them interacting with each other, and yet still I don't really see the vision.
I think that this assumes some kind of idea of being buried close to one another. They have been having some kind of camaraderie in the underworld before they were summoned back here as ghosts.
But that's not really commensurate. That doesn't really line up with the Greek understanding of the underworld. And I don't think it is true if all these people were hanging out in the underworld that the natural conclusion of that would be our leader is Peter Stuyvesant, governor of the New Netherlands for this specific period of time.
Yes. I think the truth is that they are not all waiting for a sign from Pegleg Pete. I think Percy just has no idea what's going on.
Into it. Okay.
I think Percy is not understanding the situation. I think the ghosts are probably disoriented.
Yeah. Okay.
That also brings me to the question, like, where are these ghosts coming from? Were they in the underworld? You know what I mean? More broadly, more generally, within the context of the Riordan verse?
I don't know that all of our kind of metaphysical alignment questions are going to have super satisfying answers. There's something about the idea of Hecate that I think is inviting us to branch out, break free, forget about all that has been known before.
Absolutely. Feel the rain on your skin.
Pegleg Pete turns to Annabeth and says, "Go on then, girl." I thought this was really funny out of context, and I have nothing else to say about this. I think that brings us to the end of this chapter.
Go on then, girl. And Annabeth did. She did go on then, girl.
And she did, yeah.
Annabeth turned and led us out of the graveyard. All right. Chapter 32. But first, we'll take a break.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Okay, chapter 32, passing the torch works out super well. 1 block, that's how far we made it. Okay, so we've got all the ghosts, we've got Pete, Annabeth's carrying the torches, and we're heading across 11th Street back to the manse. So far, everyone is behaving. We get a capital T, capital M through the mist reference in this chapter. Shout out to Owen from the Through the Mist podcast. The mortals we passed gave us a wide berth. Through the mist, I imagined we looked like a Halloween tour group. Please follow the torches for a Ghosts and Goblins walk. Hecuba and Nope are so cute right now. They're jumping into, Percy calls it border collie mode, and they're like sheepdogging all of the ghosts to make sure that they stay together. I'm kind of picturing less Halloween tour group, and in my mind, I'm picturing like the little kids, when you see like a group of first graders walking through the streets of New York, they're all wearing matching vests and holding onto a bright yellow rope.
The rope ladder, yeah.
That's what I'm picturing. That's what the mist would do for me. Annabeth only makes it 1 block and immediately says out loud, I made a mistake, which is big for her and something we should talk about.
Yes, this is something that is reflecting maybe a change in her hubris, her relationship to her fatal flaw. It seems like for both her and Percy, everyone is... The fatal flaws have mellowed out a lot. Maybe they're just getting old. I identify with this idea.
Or maybe the fatal flaw is still very much present as a flaw, but it is no longer as fatal, you know?
Like there's more of a self-understanding and like a impulse regulation type of...
But that it is still a huge obstacle for her, but that she overcomes it better.
Yeah.
That like the entire one block that she was walking, maybe even before, from the second they started summoning it, she was like, I can't do this, but I don't want to say anything. And she struggled with that until this exact moment where she knows she has to say, I made a mistake. Otherwise, she's going to take them all down with her. I don't think that means it's easy for her to admit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the solution that we've come to is that we're going to try to pass the torches from Annabeth to Percy, which is unprecedented. We've emphasized that this has never been done before, even though I don't feel like we know that much about the lore of these torches in general, and the fact that they're unprecedented. I feel like on a level, all of this is unprecedented, but it's special. We'll lean into it. We'll celebrate the moment.
I love that Gail is also here to kind of be like, this is unprecedented, you know? Like, we need her in the story for a variety of reasons, but we also need her to be like the Annabeth of the history of witchcraft.
Yes.
For her to be like, guys, you can't do that.
She is like the source of expert knowledge, and also is still kind of mean. I say that affectionately.
Yes.
Gail doesn't suffer fools and will let people know what she thinks is ridiculous.
Yes, 100%.
But we're going to try anyway, and we are going to succeed.
All right, Carter's going to start a reading for us from the bottom of 267.
Let me take the torches, I said. Hecuba growled. That's not a great idea, Grover translated. If you break the summoning, I can do it, I insisted. Walking these guys back to the manse, that I can handle. We need Annabeth fresh when we get there so she can take over. Hecuba made a sound between a grunt and a whimper. She doesn't know if you can pass the torches from one person to another, Grover said. No one's ever tried that before. I meant Annabeth's eyes. We can. I figured that after holding the way to the sky and trekking through Tartarus together, the two of us were about as in sync as a couple could be. There might not be any I in team, but there certainly was an A for Annabeth and 3 other letters that didn't really stand for anything, so let's forget I said that. The point was, we were great collaborators. I wasn't sure of much else, but I was sure of that. I faced her, nose to nose, and held up my arms to match hers. It's okay. I wrapped my hands over hers on the torch handles. Let me help. She loosened her grip and fell back into Grover's arms.
Yay!
Wasn't that nice?
Yes, I'm always sort of, not that they were the ones who did it first, but for some reason this always sticks out in my brain. You know in Frozen 2?
There was so much discourse about the Kristoff final moments showing up on the reindeer scene in Frozen 2. To the extent that people like still talk about this movie, I think that was one of the things that stood out to people the most.
I am the people. It stood out to me. The moment is in Frozen 2, and if you aren't familiar with Frozen 2, I'm begging you to watch it as soon as humanly possible. Just
it is a masterpiece.
Reference.
It's not gonna be perfect. Like let's be clear, but it's a masterpiece.
And a companion. Dare we call it a companion piece to this set of chapters when we talk about thinking about historical pasts, relationships between different groups of people occupying the same land, and how we can understand that narrative more authentically to what truly happened when we think about the past and try to relate to different groups of people. Kristoff rides up in like the final moments of the catastrophe that is taking place, and Princess Anna is trying to solve it all. She's very much the heroine of that film, and Kristoff is like, what do you need? And that broke and exploded many people's brains. And
also, like, is the entire resolution of his character arc for the movie. Like, we don't have to get into all the specifics of what he's doing, but he isn't like that the whole movie, and this is how you know that he has arrived and completed his journey for the film, is that he says that.
Yes. Also, let me clarify, the exact quote is, I'm here. What do you need? And Percy here saying, it's okay. Let me help. This is a big deal. And I know that this is nothing new for Percabeth. We've trod this territory before, but it will never not warm my heart witnessing a girl who does it all herself, a sister who's doing it for herself, allow herself to release and let the person who loves and adores her and who she trusts take over, or at the very least help.
Yeah.
It gets me every time.
It's very nice. Some might say that it is excessive, but I would not be one to... I don't think it's excessive. The constant drumbeat of exceptionalism, I think, is important.
The constant drumbeat of exceptionalism is important. Will you parse that out for me just a little bit? Because my brain is very slow right now.
I think that having this long, I guess it's not that long, having this paragraph of Percy saying, we're not like the other couples, we're special, we're better than them, we did all these things, and taking you through their relationship history again. I think some people would look at that and be like, we know all that already. We did that, like, we
Got
get
it.
it. But that's not correct. These are two 17-year-olds. It actually is very important for them to constantly be like, but no, we're actually very special.
They are.
And also there's evidence, like he's taking you through the citations every time. I appreciated this a lot.
Also, that's just that I faced her nose to nose and held up my arms to match hers. The fan art. I want a fan art of that exact sentence. It's on page 268. If you have some, if you've made some, send it my way. If you
visual iconography is
make
important.
some,
yeah. Fan art, at some point 20 years from now when this is finally done in the TV show, what a nice beginning for a fan edit compilation this moment will be.
It is so interesting, now that we're sort of at the moment, it is interesting how quickly Annabeth relinquishes. I am kind of shocked by that. I know we just had that conversation, but I am shocked by how quickly Annabeth says I made a mistake.
Yeah. We do have this, I guess, understanding that ultimately she still has more to do. It's not like she's tapping out forever. I feel like that's where we're able to meet her, that we still have a recognition that there is another burden for her that is more singularly hers.
Coming up.
Yeah.
To rebuild the manse. Yeah, because right now we're just on the walk. We haven't gotten to the rebuilding yet.
Yeah, anybody could do that. And so it shall be Percy. Yeah,
Percy needs to help her save her energy for the more artistic task at hand.
Anyway, Percy's carrying the torches. I thought this was so funny. He says, quote, I was starting to think Grover was right. I needed to work out more.
That was very funny. That was pretty funny. He said, I was running a serious deficit of muscles and stuff. And that's the duality. That's the T, because
that's a good callback.
We are anti the Marvel physical industrial complex. We are anti the Marvel protein powder industrial complex. However, it is true. At a certain, you know what? I'm all about functional fitness, functional training, mobility, strength, bone density, right? You got to lift heavy weights to increase your bone density.
And so's Percy. He's he swims.
He swims, yeah. But it's true that okay, what he needs to be training for is not to look a certain way or achieve a certain physical aesthetic ideal of a hero. He just needs to be training so that when he needs to take those torches from his girlfriend, he can hold them up, right? That's functionally focused training that we're talking about here.
I also feel like we need to wake up that the aesthetic ideal is also a little gauche. I don't know where Grover is on his journey. I just feel like, volume maximization in the arms is not, I think, the ultimate aesthetic goal of humanity, in my opinion. For me.
If Percy looked different, that's not to say that he would have more strength and be able to do this,
Also that.
This is what I'm talking about. People are training for aesthetics and not for everyday life.
Yeah.
Percy's everyday life demands him to be in these strange positions. He needs to maintain flexibility in his shoulders so he can hold those torches up,
Yeah.
The more muscle you have, the harder it is to maintain flexibility and mobility.
Also, a lot of times the aesthetics are wrong. I'll say it. People can choose what's right for them, but a lot of times the aesthetics are wrong. For me. That's me. That's for me. That's my opinion.
I think that people know where we stand.
Do you want to redo this Hadestown reference? There's one in the outline.
Oh, yeah. I was a little hung up on Percy taking the torches, and then Annabeth is the one who is verbally coaching him through as he's kind of blacking in and out, trying to lead everybody through without hallucinating and seeing these visions of Hecate and all of this, walking down the streets of New York. And Annabeth is kind of he can hear her voice popping in and out. She says, don't worry, we'll figure it out. And then at one point, Percy says, I raised the torches higher. This is 270. The ghosts retreated, whispering insults. Stuyvesant's face was only a swirl of soot, but I was pretty sure he was leering at me. That was close, Annabeth said. Just keep going. You're doing great. I staggered on, and this continues. And I see.
And that's the Hadestown reference.
Yes, I was struck by the visual aspect of the staging of Doubt comes in Hadestown the musical, which nobody listening to this podcast has ever heard of before.
That's not true. That is absolutely not true. Listeners, sound off.
I was being sarcastic because we talk about it all the time.
It's true.
I know you've all heard of it. I just rewatched it because I haven't been at work for several days. I just rewatched a Hadestown bootleg. A slime. Yes, I'm sorry. I watched a Hadestown slime tutorial. Because I do that whenever I'm in a state of emotional distress, like in New York. Like Tawny and I will just try to get a rush seat or whatever for Hadestown and just go and see it when we're not feeling well. And it's been a nuts week, and so I watched a bootleg, and it really helped.
Do they still do standing room back of the orchestra?
I don't know that they do, but that is how I first saw Hadestown back in 2019. I stood in standing room, and Anais Mitchell was right behind me, noting the entire time. It was very cool. I kind of watched her watch the show for the whole first act. Anyway, Doubt comes in. Eurydice trailing behind Orpheus. They're in the dark, right? They're only lit by the lanterns. She jumps out. The light comes up, and she says, "Orpheus, are you listening? I am right here, and I will be to the end, and the coldest night of the coldest year comes right before the spring." Obviously, that doesn't work out well for them, but in this moment, it's cute.
A lot of the visual iconography here is also reminiscent of a Cardcaptor Sakura episode that I've referenced on this podcast, I think on several different occasions, in which there are two of them holding a staff together and transforming the twin cards of light and dark together, which are actually not twins and are probably lesbian lovers. Everyone should also watch that. It is legal.
It's almost time for ... together.
It's almost time for ... together. Yes, this is very near the end of the chapter. We have arrived, and we have to figure out who has the strength, how logistically we are going to rebuild. And just to be totally locked in on the setup at this point, we have successfully completed our walk. We're back at the manse, and now we need to muster even more strength to command Pete, the ghosts, everybody to rebuild in the mental image that we have.
Page 272.
My turn, Annabeth said. Brave words, but she still looked exhausted. I wasn't any better. We'd barely managed to transfer the torches before. If we tried now, I was afraid we'd end up setting ourselves on fire, burning down the manse, and then getting eaten alive by the garden ghouls. I forced a few words from my dry throat. How about together? Grover started to object, but Hecuba's bark cut him off. Gale added a few urgent chirps. I got the message without translation. Whatever you're going to do, do it now. The ghosts were getting restless. They had reached my chosen destination. Now what? Maybe they could rip us into bite-sized pieces? Meanwhile, nope. Oblivious to our danger was trying to chomp the end of Stuyvesant's shadow sword. Okay, Annabeth said. Together. She put her arm around my waist. She reached out for the torch in my right hand. Let me do the thinking, she warned. Gladly, I croaked. She took the torch. Wow, that was a relief. Suddenly, only the left side of my body felt like it was dissolving in acid. On my right, I had Annabeth, which was much better. I put my free arm around her waist. We held each other tight. The torches blazed, heating up again to a bright blue flame.
This is also the moment I was struck with that need for some fan art. 273. I think someone sent some to me. I'll post it and share it on the Instagram this week.
Wait, let me move this one back down. This is actually the appropriate image for this Cardcaptor Sakura art from the penultimate episode, where they're like holding a staff between the two of them, and they're like doing like the half like one arm hug, other arm holding the stick.
Oh, it's precious. That is ... together. That really is.
Could it have ended any other way? How else would we have possibly resolved this? Everything fell into place. Amazing, perfect, phenomenal, beautiful, sensational.
Very also like a beautiful, sensational, delightful, gorgeous, stunning, pretty Percabeth moment to end the book. Very similar to Chalice with the rainbow message shooting up into the sky. It works out. Annabeth fixes the house. The door can even be quirky and random again. Yay! That was incredible, said the lion. That was horrible, said the horse. Stroop waffles, said the dog.
I can't believe how much they made me miss the quirky and random door. But they really were so quickly able to establish such a deep characterization, a rich lore and personality for this door, that I was thrilled to see it return.
Would you say the manse has been personified even into a true character in the book? Would you say that the location is? Would you say that it's been given a voice?
Yeah, I would say that the manse is the final main character of the book. Yeah, and it's finally back.
Which I want to go back to what Sophia said last week about Annabeth being insecure about, you see the people, I saw the buildings, but structures are so much more than just buildings. They're shelter, they're homes, they're schools, they have personalities of their own.
Yeah.
The manse is a great example of that. It means so much more than just walls.
And it's back, which means that we are, in theory, done with everything. We've fixed all of our problems. But
You
there's 7 more
summoned a
chapters.
colonizer.
You summoned an evil colonizer who spent the whole time, we didn't mention this, the entire time he's been clutching the handle of his sword, watching everybody, watching Annabeth, watching Percy, watching this group of people who he may or may not be in control of, and it may or may not be ethically justified for him to be in control of them. Gripping the sword, we know that he's trying to attack us. We know he hates us. We know this is a violent man. And when we're about to do the final, I guess this is the true Chekhov, maybe. Chekhov's crossing of Hecate's 2 torches.
Absolutely.
To dispel all of the ghosts. Percy just cannot do it. Grover was right. Percy was not putting in the reps. Percy can't do it. One of the torches drops. We're going to fight the ghost now. That's what this means.
Chapter 33. We have a good old-fashioned witch burning. It's us. We're the witches.
That really tickled me. You know, some of the chapter names, I feel like there's been much more variation in this book about how much sass and also how much vaguely internet syntax is making its way into these chapter titles.
Yes.
This is, I think, strongly an internet sentence pattern that I was so tickled to see here.
Beautiful syntax. Gorgeous, gorgeous gowns. Love to see it.
It paints such a clearer picture of what part of the internet Rick is on.
Or what part of the internet the kids that Rick interacts with constantly are on.
That's true. Yeah. Well, apparently we're the witches. Isn't that exciting?
It is
this
exciting.
This is Percy's POV. Percy's like, I'm a witch now.
Aww. Do you like, I mean, after our whole conversation about whether or not,
I mean, he's not a witch, but it's nice for him to like identify as part of the team.
Okay, there we go. Because we did have the whole conversation about whether or not Wiccan is a witch on the Patreon episode. So I was just curious where you stood on Percy calling himself a witch.
Well, I mean, like Percy, I think is a very cut and dry, clear, like there's in no way is he a witch. He's not casting spells. He is not doing the craft. There's no, grinding incantation. I can't remember what phrase Cersei uses to describe the slow boring process. He's not doing any of that. He's not a witch, but he's part of the team. And I think that's what we're celebrating here.
There we go. Yeah. At the very start of the chapter, in the demigod business, we have a technical term for situations like this. We call them bad. I collapsed on the porch. The ghosts rushed in, ready to feast. Fortunately, there was Annabeth. That sentence describes a lot of my life, actually. She lunged, snatched the fallen torch before the flames could gut her out completely, and positioned herself between me and the dead. Get back! She yelled. Begone! Which to me, again, no one touches her! That's what I thought of. Is that, did you get that
Last
too?
Olympian reference. Oh, of
Last
course,
Olympian.
of course.
It's so good, but it's reversed this time.
And reversal is important to make one of these things. And she does cross them. She completes the physical action.
Yeah, because she's putting in the reps.
Oh, yeah. Annabeth, we believe in her arm strength. But
yeah, because she's training functionally. She knows. She's a planner.
I do think that's right. Yeah, she's a planner.
Yeah.
She completes the action, but maybe the spell is broken, maybe because he dropped it. We don't have like enough of a deep, complicated lore understanding laid out to explain everything, but we know it didn't work. We're going to have to fight the ghosts. And specifically, this chapter is less about the battle and more about the reasoning, the beef, the villain origin story, I suppose, for Pete. Pegleg Pete, Peter Stuyvesant. The specific angle we're getting here is, should we read a quote? He says,
yes.
Pete Stuyvesant, that is, says, "Your heretic souls, you must burn. The witch's house must burn." I did not know this is the angle we were going to take.
It was a very interesting pivot. Very, very interesting pivot for the final moments.
Jarring. But I mean, like at the same time, it like you can see the vision that we're doing a Halloween book. So like,
might as well end with some witch trials.
Yes, when we think about the American relationship to the witch, we think about the witch trial. We think about colonial times. We think about Puritanism, and
we've been having this project throughout the book of different world traditions of Halloween and what is more American than discrimination.
What is more American than discrimination? American tradition, it is having diversity and being mad about it. It is... Well, because the thing is, America doesn't just have witch trials. It's not just like, we're the daughters of the witches you couldn't burn. It's that like generationally throughout history, there have been so many iterations of the witch trial. I think there's a uniquely American tradition of trying to control this special intersection of femininity and that which is outside of traditional structures of knowledge and organization and control. You know, like, I'm obviously not the first person to draw this analogy, but like when we think about the American legacy of midwifery and the relationship that it had to traditional medicine, not traditional medicine in the sense of like medicine that like predated white people, but traditional medicine in the sense of like the American Medical Association and men in white coats versus people who would help people give birth, and the fights that they had and the problems that caused, all of which are kind of alluded to in Agatha all along. I don't know that we were really fully cashed in on that, but that was kind of where we were going with that. All of which is to say, I can understand the vision for this. It does change the tenor of the book, for me at least, from like, oh, ha ha ha, spooky, scary. Aren't we all a little bit spooky? To, oh, no. This is a real villain. We're encountering the true evil.
Yeah. Manifested into a single ghost person.
Single ghost person who is checking all the boxes, like religious fundamentalist, colonizer, man. What more would there be to say? Yeah.
And that there was no other option. Like, this was their best bet at solving their problem, was to raise him from the dead.
Yeah.
But now they have to deal with it.
I don't know. I still kind of felt like he was going to, I guess I had no strong prior about what he was going to do, what he was going to say, that he was just going to be like grumpy, or that, I don't know, like this vision of him being powerful, scary, and like full of vitriol.
Yeah.
Is interesting. And also, quick sidebar, very likely ahistorical. We have some information about Peter Stuyvesant, who was, you know, an important person at the time of his life. And it does not seem likely that he would have specifically had these opinions about witchcraft, because the witch trials did happen in New Amsterdam, which is the, you know, old name for New York, but they were like run under the previous governor. And it was mostly, I mean, like, as was the case for the Salem witch trials also, which we all have to imagine are implicitly being invoked by this passage and this idea of what we're getting at here. The previous governor of the New Netherlands, before Peter Stuyvesant was in charge, was somebody who was really into leading witch trials. And he was doing it mostly as a way to target the Lenape, the indigenous people who were sharing the island of Manhattan with the colonizers, which is also, depending on which accounts you read, an important factor in Salem, that we were punishing indigenous people, that we were punishing people who were brought as slaves to New England. Peter Stuyvesant, by all accounts, was not into all of this because he was a part of a different religious sub-tradition than that previous governor, and his sub-tradition was apparently not, they didn't care that much about this, is what Wikipedia at least is saying, that he was a part of a different church. Yeah, the Reformed Church, which was not in favor of doing witch trials. Which is not to say he wasn't like a religious zealot and that he didn't like persecute people of other religious backgrounds, because of course he did. He was. But anyway, that's just a fun little, if you didn't care to read the Wikipedia page about him, there's a minute worth of information from it about whether or not this man would have been likely to hate witches the way that he does in this book.
Yes. Thank you for the history lesson, Carter. But it's still, yeah, probably ahistorical, but a very good stand-in for confronting the American history.
Yes.
The American relationship with witchcraft.
It brings us into the American history, the American relationship with witches, and is effective at getting us to make the pivot, which I think is sort of similar to the plot arc of Chalice, and is pretty common as like a structure for this kind of thing, where like Hecate is our challenger in the end, and now we are facing her challenges. Like, We Are the Witches is about a sense of solidarity, and that the true enemy is her enemy, much in the same way that kind of Ganymede's true enemy became her true enemy in Chalice.
Yeah, I love this pivot. I enjoyed this book, but then this pivot helped stick the landing.
I agree.
It also gives them a really scary, formidable physical enemy that isn't Hecate to take down together as a family at the end of the book, which is also good. Also nice, pleasant. And it really sets up this terrifying, like, visually fantastic final battle that follows this evil monologue, where all of the ghosts kind of disappear and then come back either covered in trash, having stolen Halloween costumes, or possessing people out on the street who are trick-or-treating. And so they show up. I'm sort of picturing this like almost like the Thriller music video.
Thriller music video,
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead. It's very
Yes.
classic imagery.
Mm-hmm.
But makes sense in this and is marrying that on top of the layer of like, I'm an evil old controlling man who hates women idea as well. We're marrying those two pretty seamlessly.
Does it make total cognitive sense to me that all of the ghosts who were raised would be fighting on behalf of Peter Stuyvesant? No. But I guess they're just fighting because they don't want to get banished, period.
Yeah, I suppose.
They don't want to, they don't want to go back in the ground.
Does it make total sense that the ghosts would steal Halloween costumes? Also, I didn't totally follow the logic.
Well, that's the magic of
the
Halloween.
end result I'm okay with. Yeah. They just wanted to be festive, which is also okay.
Battle aside, it's still Halloween. Like, you got to show up.
It's still Halloween. They want to, yeah.
You got to serve a fit if you're going to show up. And Stuyvesant chooses to be a cop, which makes plenty sense. He shows up on horseback as a cop.
Well, actually, maybe this is a good time to plug that there's like a podcast out that is specifically about the history of the NYPD that is quite interesting that people might want to tap into here. Peter Stuyvesant would have long predated the NYPD, which actually post-dates. I mean, this is a fact that a lot of people know. The NYPD specifically has in its founding a strong relationship to the Fugitive Slave Act, which of course would have long post-dated Peter Stuyvesant. Like the NYPD doesn't have a legacy that you can trace back to him because its true legacy is somehow even more horrifyingly racist.
What's the name of the podcast?
This is an excellent question. It is from Crooked Media. It is about the history of the NYPD. So I'm going to Google all of those terms right now. Empire City is what it's called.
Empire City, the untold origin of the NYPD. All right, I'm on it.
It's one of those self-contained podcasts, where they're like, I want to tell one story. So it's going to be, I think it's 8 episodes. 10 episodes. Amazing. Perfect. The story's told. And then the host is going to move on to do something else, which is a great flavor of podcast as well. There's also one about Stevie Wonder that was like 6 episodes, in, out, perfect. Ended with an interview with Barack Obama. Chef's kiss.
Absolutely.
Anyway, he's inhabiting a cop, which is like, obviously this is all historical. Spiritually, we understand the vision of evil that's happening.
Yeah, we're really combining several kinds of evil to battle in this final moment, which I love. And after this big twist about Stuyvesant,
there's another twist.
We get another twist. Oh my gosh,
Stunt queen.
I was gagged. Do you want to read that final twist line, Carter, on 283?
We know whose house this is. My mother must pay for her pagan crimes.
Mother? Pagan?
There's so much in there. And we haven't met anybody like this before. Like, we have never, so far in the Riordan verse, met somebody who is like, one of my parents is a Greek god, and the other of my parents hates that and think that that's like fake, heresy, hellish. We've met some people who are like, within world, like, I'm picking a different side in this pantheon from you, but nobody who's been like, the existence of my parents is a religious affront to the true order of the heavens. I wasn't prepared for this.
I want to know so much more about this. I want to know so much more. And I'm excited for the next set of chapters.
Like the idea of doing both of these things simultaneously, like being like, we're going to pivot to make him a witch hater, and we're going to pivot to make him
have mommy issues.
Yes.
And he's a cop.
And he's
Lots
a cop.
going on.
And like, what does he believe? Like, he's like very, I feel like saying pagan gives you some idea, but like, he's like not that specific in his religious imagery. So like, what does this have instead? Like, what does this mean about his relationship to himself? Like, metaphysically, what does he tell himself about who he is? And like, what is his place in the universe?
Well, that you dropped this information about how he was a bit of a religious zealot when it came to the Reformed Church, that was it within the Riordan verse, that this is something that he like turned to because he was so insecure and had such terrible mommy issues that he decided to totally abandon his heritage and instead turn towards something else in an act of rebellion.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Wild.
I had no idea.
They really, we're like gags on top of gags, just reveal into a reveal today.
Costume change. Now I'm a cop. I'm on a horse. Mother. Changing wigs on top of wigs.
Yeah, wow. Anyway.
Good times. We've
We
only
have a
got a
battle
couple
next
episodes
time
left.
against this man.
We got a battle. We got some resolution. We've been covering this book for such a long time.
Yeah, remember initially we were like, this is going to be like a fun, like little Halloween times jaunt.
Well, Halloween is
And it
forever,
was.
you believe.
And Halloween is forever. Yeah. But we're very close to the end. We have a battle. We have I think we have another family dinner to go to. We're close to the end.
Yay! Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your patience while my brain is slow. There's a lot going on. Thank you everyone for listening. And we will see you guys next time.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye all.